This is going to be a recap for Unit 1. We started off looking at the fight for African American Studies courses in colleges during the 1960s as well as the 1970s. We started looking at two readings that analyzed the process of writing history as well as the potential downside of excluding all perspectives of history. We were introduced to primary source documents, which will be key to understanding the AP African American Studies course, which heavily relies on documents. After reading 1, we transitioned to reading 2, which was a focus on American history, where numerous African Americans were introduced into the narrative. The main point of both readings was to understand that there are different perspectives of historical events. This image is looking at how there can be a white interpretation of American history, a black interpretation, and the blue line can represent any other group, whether we're talking about the Asian experience, which is going to be different from the other two. We then transition to the geography of Africa, the entry points through water routes, as well as the different climate zones, and the different climate zones would determine how civilizations and where civilizations are going to evolve and what items and resources they would need in order to thrive as a civilization. Hence the 5 themes of geography: the interaction with the environment, the location, which basically means, if we look at this poor image of Africa that I was able to try to recreate, areas along the coast are going to be in a better position with access to water, the Nile River, as opposed to being in the interior where access to water is going to be limited, which could ultimately lead to groups moving. With this map, we see the location of oceans as well as rivers, and how rivers and oceans would play a crucial role in the development, where empires are going to eventually emerge and access to resources will be crucial. The image here looks at some of the locations and some of the civilizations that emerged, the Swahili people, and their evolution is going to be determined by those climate zones that were previously mentioned. This gives you here some specific information about some of the specific groups. Another map showing the climate zones of Africa with a timeline showing you the chronological order of events as well as some of the civilizations that are going to emerge: the Bantu people, the Sand people, Lucy, skeletal remains that are going to appear in Africa dated 200,000 years ago, and some of the empires that are going to emerge. We then transition to completing this chart in groups. Students were asked to research and then share in a presentation with their group members the information that they learn. The images are images that are in the AP framework. And here we see some of the specific groups of people, societies, civilizations, and empires that would eventually emerge, as well as some of the documents and images that are part of the AP framework. So here we see the Bantu people and their migration patterns here. The development of tools, the Sand people who are hunter-gatherers, Knox society starting to leave artifacts, the location of their civilization, the Aksumite Empire. Here we see the first society to adopt Christianity, as well as the introduction of Islam, coins, which is crucial because it shows currency. As we mentioned in one of the classes, according to European civilization standards, when you have a government, a functioning economy, a strong military, these are all indications of what the Europeans would label a high civilization. So the fact that there are some coins shows a thriving economy, culture through the creation of art. Here we have some more empires. When we're looking at this particular slide, we're looking at this region here. And with this particular region, one empire simply is replaced by another. So we're starting out here, and then we have the Soso Empire, the Mali Empire. The location is crucial for the transatlantic slave trade. As it says here, most enslaved Africans transported directly were from this region, and that's a result of being on the coast. This image showing you the transfer of power utilizing that timeline and some of the reasons for that decline, as well as what made the empire significant. Here we have taxes, vassals, which is an interesting term because it's a reference to a system of stratification like European feudalism. Mansa Musa, who was a wealthy ruler. There is an image that you have to be familiar with that represents this particular empire. Here we have some more required images, some more artifacts that are left behind, the location of the Sudanic empires, which is Ghana, Soso, Mali. Remember, these empires, one dissolves the other. The Sudanic Empire, this region right here. Zimbabwe, significant for the location as well as the military defense wall structures that were set up. Military defense, as it's mentioned here, a hub for long distance trade. The location is going to be crucial as we get to some of the other images. This slide is a summary of some of the important points with the charts that we completed in class. The role of Christianity, the culture, the political factors that led to the rise and fall, in this case on the Swahili coast. As remember, the European argument is going to be that Africa is a dark continent. So when you start looking at the culture, the politics, the military, and all of those other prerequisites for high civilization, it's going to bring up the question that is addressed here. Was Africa better off without European intervention? Here we have an image of the migration patterns for the Bantu people. Notice the dates. These two maps are looking at the kingdoms and empires that would emerge. This area is significant because that is the Sudanic empires near the coast, as well as access to rivers, this region right here. And we could see classical Egypt, Kush, Aksum, in these particular areas. And what you want to focus on is, again, their location. The ones that are on the coast are going to be crucial for economic reasons and trade that will play a role later on in the course. Here we have another required image, the Mandi Griots, part of the Mali Empire, and their role was crucial for passing down oral traditions, as it mentions here. And that's the significance of this particular image, maintaining that tradition of passing down some of these stories. And we have another required image, ancient Ghana, and this is a map of that particular civilization. And the significant question here is, once again, did Africans have a civilization prior to European intervention? Here we have a map showing the kingdom of Aksum, the introduction of Christianity. Here we have an image showing the Sudanic empires that existed, and these three here, Ghana, Mali, Songhai. And all three of them are considered Sudanic empires. And as I mentioned before, one replaces the other. Another map showing the location of those empires, the Sudanic empire. This required image is of trade routes linking various continents, civilizations, and regions throughout the world, and their location in Africa, which is going to potentially have some consequences, which usually is what happens when you start to have civilizations trade. You start to see the fusing of religion, language, culture, and so on. Here we see the Swahili coast region that we're looking at here, which is this particular part in this map. And the red is significant because we're going to start to see the Portuguese play a heavy role in some parts of Africa. As it mentions here, established settlements in the 16th century to control Indian Ocean trade. This portion of the chart shows Congo, and the Congo adopting Christianity, which is the point of this image here, the location of the Congo, and its involvement with the Portuguese. So we're starting to see a lot about the Portuguese and their role in African history. This part of the chart is focusing on these two kingdoms. Then in Ndongo, the location here, and once again, the highlighted red is crucial for the second unit. As it mentions here, these are going to be large groups of enslaved Africans to arrive in America. And we're going to start to see some resistance, which is what this section here is about. We're starting to see the slave trade emerge and impact Africa negatively, and you're going to start to see some resistance. As we see more European influence, you're going to see some resistance, and that's what this required image is showing you. Queen Njinga, as it mentions here, standing up to European colonizers. We're going to start with the map here that showed trade between the continents. And this is another required image here, the King Fountain. And what's crucial about this one is it's starting to show the presence of Africans and the roles they play. And this is from the AP framework text here. So the key point is that you're starting to see the fusion of different cultures, different racial groups, if you want to use that term. And that is going to either be positive or negative, depending on which side we're looking at. Here we have a primary source document, and in this document, it's looking at trying to end slavery by writing to the King of Portugal. I've put some text here in bold. As it mentions here, our kingdom is being lost. Merchants are taking every day our native sons of the lands and the son of our noblemen, because it is our will that in these kingdoms there should not be any trade of slave or outlet for them. So this is a plea to try to prevent the practice of enslavement. So to recap, we looked at the geography of Africa, which was going to determine, based on that geography, where empires were going to emerge and what those empires were going to have to do to survive. We completed the chart timeline showing some of the dates as well as the empires that would emerge. Eventually, you would start to see trade between Africa and other parts of the world. The fusion of cultures that's going to emerge, and the eventual enslavement that would lead to the resistance of the practice of enslavement of Africans. And that will set us up for Unit 2, which is going to primarily be about the transatlantic slave trade. And that's it for this summary on Unit 1.